Hey, welcome back. In this video, we will discuss about inheritance in Python object-oriented programming. So we have been talking about the classes and the objects throughout the videos, right? And we have created multiple classes. Now, what if you are creating two classes, let's say, and the two classes has the common properties and methods, and just one of the method is different in both of the classes. So how you can reduce the duplication of the code? To reduce the duplication of the code, you can use inheritance. Okay, so inheritance allows us to define a class that inherits all the methods and properties from another class. Okay, the parent class is the class being inherited from, also called the base class. The child class is the class that inherits from another class, also called the derived class. Okay, so how we can create a child class? So to create a class that inherits the functionality from another class, send the parent class as a parameter when creating the child class. Okay, so let's see that in action. First of all, let's create a class of person. So class person. Okay, here we can do the init method, basically the constructor method. Init, all right, it will take self and it will take the first name and last name. All right, and here we can do self dot first name equals to first name, self dot last name equals to last name. Okay, and here we can write a basic method as well. So def print name, or let's do something like full name. Okay, full name, that will be taking the self just, and here it will return the f string of, let's do self dot first name and a space, and then self dot last name. Okay, and here we can do something like the full name is, and something like that. Okay, let's add a colon. So this is our simple class. Okay, now what we can do something like this. So let's do p1 for person 1 equals to something like person. Let's add the first name, which is John. Let's add the last name, which is Doe. Okay, and here we can print the p1 basically. All right, now if I just run the program, we are getting this object. But now what we can do something like, so now what we can do p1 dot full name, and we have to call the method. All right, so this is the method which is returning us this f string here. Run the program, we are getting the full name is John Doe. This is totally fine. Now let's create a child class here as well. Okay, so I will get rid of this one. So this is our person class. Okay, now let's create a class of student. So class student. Okay, and here I will just add pass. So now what I want, this student should be a person, right? And the person should have the first name, last name, and so on, right? And that should inherit all of these, like these things, the first name, last name, and also the full name method. So how we can do that? We can do that by using the inheritance. So what we have to do, we have to open up the parenthesis. Okay, and here we have to pass the parent class, which is the base class, which is person. Okay, all right. Now what will happen, this student class will have the first name, last name, and the full name method here as well. Okay, So here what we can do something like this. So S1 equals to a student. So here, as you can see inside of the VS Code, we are getting these suggestions. So we have to pass the first name and the last name. So let's add once again John as the first name and add a comma. As you can see, we have to pass the last name as well. So Doe. Okay. And here we can do something like print S1 dot. As you can see, we are getting once again auto completions as well. So full name. Okay, we have to call that. All right. So what we have done here. So we have defined the base class, which is the person class. The person class has the first name and the last name. And here, as you can see, we are getting the full name method here as well. And after that, we have defined another class, which is the student class. And all of the student should be the person, right? And that is why it is inheriting from the person class. Okay, so how to inherit? So basically we have to open up the parenthesis and pass the basically the parent class here inside of that. And now all of the things, these properties or the attributes like the first name, last name, and also the methods which we are defining inside of the base class are available inside of the student class. Okay. Now if I run the program, as you can see, we are instantiating this student class with the S1. Okay. So now if I run the program, we are getting the full name is John Doe. Okay. So this is basically how the inheritance work. Okay. And this is a really simple example of inheritance in action. Okay. So what we can do, we can add the init method as well inside of this student class here. Okay. So the init function is called automatically every time the class is being used to create an object. Okay. So here what we can do something like this. Instead of pass, we can do def double underscore init double underscore. And here what we have to do, we have to pass the self. And once again, it should need the first name. So first underscore name and last name, last underscore name. Okay. And here what we have to do, something like this. Self dot first name equals to first name. Self dot last name equals to last name. Okay. So now, as you can see, we are having two different init methods here. Okay, one in the person and another one inside of the student. So now let's run the program and let's see what happens. So as you can see, the full name is John Doe. Okay, so everything works properly. All right. But the thing is, this is code duplication, right? So this init method and this init method is totally exactly the same. So how we can reduce it? So we can reduce it in some different ways. So first, I will show you a way to reduce this code and then we can improve upon that particular code. So now to reduce this particular code from duplication inside of these both classes, what we can do, we can get rid of this one. So I will get rid of these two lines here. And here inside of this init method of the student class, okay, here what we can do something like this, person, and then dot double underscore init double underscore, and here we can pass the self, then first name and last name. Okay. So now as you can see, we are not duplicating our code anymore. Okay. So if I now run the program, once again, the full name is John Doe. Okay. So we have now successfully added the init function here. Okay. And kept the inheritance from the parent class as well. Okay. And we are calling the parent class. And here we are calling the init method from the parent class here. Okay. But can we do better? Yes, we can do better. So here what we are doing, we are calling the init method of the base class. Okay. And this particular thing, this particular syntax I do not recommend you to do. Instead, Python has another quite nice syntax, which is the super function. Okay, so Python also has the super function that will make the child class inherit all the methods and properties from its parent. Okay, so instead of this one, I will just comment out this one. What we can do something like this. Okay, I will just get rid of this one. So we can call the super function, and here we can do double underscore init, and here we do not have to pass the self. Okay, we have to pass the first name and the last name, as you can see from here inside of the VS Code. So first name and last name. Okay, all right. Now, as you can see, our code is much more clean, right? And now if I run the program, once again, we are getting the full name is John Doe. Okay, awesome. So this is how we can use the super function which Python provides. So by using the super function, you do not have to use the name of the parent element. Okay, basically the parent class. It will automatically inherit the methods and properties from its parent. Okay. All right. Now, as you can see, our student class is looking good. But right now, student should be a little bit more different than the person, right? Student can have the graduation year. Okay. So how we can add different properties? Okay. It is quite simple. So here what we can do something like this. So after we are calling the super, we can do self dot, let's do graduation year equals to, let's do 2026. Okay, so we can do that. And now after we are doing something like this, what we can do something like this. So let's go here and let's do graduation year. Okay, now if I run the program, we are getting 2026 and the full name is John Doe. Okay, so this is quite simple. Okay, so in this example, what exactly we are doing, we are attaching another property inside of the self, basically that particular object here. Okay, and the value is 2026. Now how we can get dynamic values while creating the student object? It is quite simple as well. So here inside of the init method, after the first name and last name, we can get the year as well. Okay, so I can do something like this. So graduation, or let's do year. Okay, all right. And here what we can do something like this. So year. Okay, so the year is not hard coded anymore. So now what we have to do while creating this particular student, what we have to do here, we have to pass the year as well. So what exactly the year? Let's pass 2024, let's say. Okay, and now run the program. We are getting 2024 once again. Okay, so in that way we can get the dynamic values and attached it to the object properties. Okay, all right. Now what we can do, we can add different methods as well. So currently right now the person class has this full name method, but the student class has no method. Okay, so it will inherit the full name method, which it does. But if we want to create another method, what we can do, just go below the init method basically and create another method. So something like greet. Okay, and here we have to pass the self. Okay, all right. And then what we can do something like this, return, and do something like the if string, like welcome. Okay, welcome. Then let's do something like self dot first name, and then let's do something like self dot last name here. Okay, to the class of, and then we can do self dot graduation year. Okay, as you can see, this is quite simple. Now what we can do, we can go here, so print and do s1 dot, and we can do something like greet. Okay, we can call the greet function here. All right, now if I just run the program, we are getting welcome John Doe to the class of 2024. Okay, we are missing a period. All right, so run the program once again. So hey, welcome John Doe to the class of 2024. So in that way, we can create and add different methods to our basically child class here. Okay, so yeah, this is basically it. So this is the inheritance in Python. Okay, so whenever we are having code duplication in our classes in Python, we can use inheritance so that we can just basically create a common class which will hold the common like attributes and the methods, and then we can extend the class, basically that base class, to another class which is the child class with all of the properties and the like functionalities with their own properties and with their own functionalities as well. So yeah, this is inheritance in Python. Okay,